The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a specialist recruitment agency operating in the metals, engineering and manufacturing industry sectors. Enjoy the pod. We was invited in by Nadine at ALFED to do a bonus podcast on apprentices and how we attract the next generation of people coming into the metals, engineering and manufacturing sector.
This pod, for those that are listening to this, is an audio version. There's a lot of people that were in the podcast. Normally, we don't have more than 4. So there was 3 hosts, effectively, myself, Mike, and Nadine, who's the CEO of ALFED. But we also had a number of guests. Now, we've tried to introduce them as they're speaking, but just to give you a flavour of who they were in the room, Mark Allen, the current president of ALFED and also the sales director at Mechatherm, joined us. Amy Bird was in the room. She's the CEO of Countrywide Metals and the founder of Women in Recycling. Michael Horan, the CEO of Sherwood Stainless and Aluminium, and finally Rachel Whiffin, who's a senior engineer and quality systems manager at Innoval, who are a consultancy that do a lot of work in the engineering space, but particularly in the aluminium sector. And she also had some quite interesting insight into onboarding or looking at that next generation of people at school age to try and make the engineering space look exciting for those school leavers, which is obviously the problem that we're facing in the sector, getting that next generation of talent through. So enjoy the podcast.
We'd like to hear your thoughts on how you onboard apprentices, how your journey's been since joining the metals or engineering or manufacturing sector, and what you feel as an industry we can do more to attract the new talent coming into our sector.
Hey guys, Peter, Mike.
The Metal Guys.
I feel nervous about this pod. Yeah. We've got a lot of people in the room today. We're with the Aluminium Federation today, and we've been asked to come down to do a podcast, which is going to be about new skills within the industry sector. Obviously, we're going to focus more on aluminium, but as we know, this is a wider issue within the metal sector and the concrete sector and plastic sector and every sector that is making things that isn't necessarily the sexiest of industries where young people are kind of foraging a path for. So just to start, Nadine, let's start with you. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's going on with the Aluminium Federation and this event that you're going to be putting on later in the year?
Yes, certainly. Well, this has all come about really, as you mentioned, because ALFED are really invested this year in looking at new starters within the sector and trying to find out where there are some areas for new skills, but also looking at the issue that a lot of our members are facing and a lot of the industry is facing with regards to the retention of skills as well. So we've got very clearly, we have an ageing workforce, but we're really keen to start bringing in the kind of newer starters, newer workers to see the aluminium sector as an attractive place to work and as a really attractive industry as well, and an industry for the future. So this has all sort of come about in the fact that we're launching our first ever Apprentice Awards for our annual dinner this year, which we normally have a kind of political speaker or an after dinner speaker that's always quite fun and engaging, but this year we thought we really want to highlight the importance of encouraging these new starters, where these apprentices are coming in and what kind of skills they can be learning, but also what kind of contributions they're offering to the industry as well. So it's going to be really about that at our ALFED dinner. So the apprentices angle is what has led us down this route, but it's kind of then meant that we've opened up more around what we can then be doing, not just to support apprentices, but what those apprentice schemes look like, but also where there are other opportunities for new starters and skill building.
With that event, when is it? Where is it? How do people apply?
Good plug. Yeah, 28th of November. So we're moving it this year. We've been in Gloucester for the last 10 years, I think. So we're hosting it at the De Vere Beaumont Hotel in Windsor this year. So it's primarily a member event, but we do also encourage other kind of industry representatives and people to come on down and join us. And we host a business briefing beforehand. So it's quite structured in the day. We give out market updates and overviews and have a real kind of industry focus for forecasting for the year ahead. And then in the evening, it's a lot more about celebrating industry, celebrating members. And this is where our Apprentice Awards will come in.
Now, Mike and I, we run a recruitment agency and we hear, I mean, it's gone mad now with regard to companies are really struggling to find people. We keep hearing this same issue. This baby boomer generation is disappearing. They've got all the skills. I think also a lot of them, because they've been working for many, many years, have got really good work ethic as well. And it seems to be, and again, it's a bit of a sweeping statement, but some of the younger generation don't seem to be sticking. They seem to be coming into some of the sectors. It's not always too difficult to attract people to join, but it seems to be an issue to kind of keep them. So if we kind of open it to the floor, maybe we start with Amy, as you are the next person in the room. So let's have a look at it from the scrap side.
You know, the scrap side of things is quite perceived to be the dirty side of the industry. That's absolutely not the case anymore. You know, we have made huge headway in that, but people don't want to come in. Now, apprenticeships are brilliant. We have different apprenticeships available in our industry, but find me some apprentices to put onto the schemes to get into the job in the first place. That would kind of be my sticking point. And I think that for me, I want them to come in. But what I'm finding with young people, and I think we really underestimate this, is they want to know their career progression. They don't want to just come in as an apprentice and then not be told where they could end up in, 5-10 years' time. You've got to give them some progression. And that's why, in my opinion, you can't retain, because they sit on these apprenticeships. The apprenticeship goes on for 2 to 4 years, and people get used to having them there. I mean, there's some great apprenticeships. They're diligent, they're working hard. But if you don't start investing in them in more ways than just that bit of training, you're not going to retain them. They're going to just keep jumping from place to place. Different way of working now. And I think just on this apprenticeship thing you said about the ageing workforce, a lot of the ageing workforce perceive it that I've done my time, I worked hard, maybe weren't treated that well when they were coming up through the ranks. And there is a little bit sometimes of so therefore the new people should be treated the same way, and we need to change that in the workplace.
How are you doing that?
Oh, for me, I really engage in the yard. So I go out in the yard, my husband goes out in the yard. We tell them about where our products are shipping to. We educate them about the whole of the business. We try and be a bit more open about that, because there are so many routes. You know, just because you start on the shop floor and you're getting your forklift license and your health and safety, what's to say that your aptitude might not be as a buyer, getting out on the road and procuring? What's to say you're not going to be an absolutely epic crane operative and you're going to be loading containers for shipment? You know, you've got to know your people well enough to spot the aptitude, because everybody's got their skill and it may not be the thing that they came in to do. And as a good boss, I think you've got to be the one that's sitting there going, I think he'd be really good at that. Or I think she would be brilliant at factory contracts, and giving them the opportunities to go and do that, and the confidence as well.
I think with apprentices, you've probably got a lot to say about this as well, but it seems like we keep banging on about, in the old days, apprenticeships were like this, in the old days, it's not the old days.
Yeah.
It's different now. And there's a couple of things that I jotted down while you were talking there. One, are apprenticeships too long? You know, is that an issue, that they're too long and people want things too quick? You mentioned about career progression. If we don't know what's happening in 5-10 years, I mean, sometimes it's like 5-10 minutes with your kids, isn't it? So it's almost like, again, is that too long, and that kind of having that track so that you can kind of develop? And then not investing. Obviously, you've mentioned about trying to invest in those people via education and also training. But what do you think are the problems with modern day apprenticeships? We don't need to just bash them, but what are you seeing as the key problems with these modern apprenticeships?
Okay, so I'm going to say the one that nobody really likes to talk about, and it's money. Young people want money. So surely an apprenticeship that started at a rate, and then as you take your baby steps in your progression, not your big long steps where you're going to end up in 2 years' time, they get rewarded. Because ultimately, they're hearing their friends that might be working on a building site and getting X amount per day, which isn't a career necessarily, but in that week, they go out on a Friday night and their friend's got more money in their pocket. That's what they're listening to. If they can't see an end in sight from their apprenticeship wage for years, they just get fed up with it. And I really think that is a huge part of it.
The money's definitely aside. I mean, we've got a client who's in the last 3 years hasn't lost one apprentice. And what they do is the money that they get given is the bonus when they complete it. So they give it them back. So at the end of, I think, end of the 2 years or whatever, it's like 8 grand or 10 grand that they get. And at that point is more of a buy-in. It's a lot more vigilant of how they're bringing these apprentices on. But there's almost a bind of going in 2 years' time. There's a nice part. It's almost like a bonus. And I think the other problem, what you mentioned, is being pigeonholed in at such a young age. Because I think I did an apprenticeship in the metal game, and as I was talking to you, like, I did like 6 to maybe 12 weeks in every department within that business. And that went on for the first year. And then it was kind of, where do I want to be? And I picked really the department I wanted to go in. And I think to be pigeonholed at such a young age is quite frightening. If you speak to people today, went into colleges, went into schools, even people that maybe second year at uni, to go, where do you really want your career to be? They don't necessarily know. And I think we onboard through an education system now where it's like, these are your kind of options: apprentices, college, and finally if you might want to go to uni. And I just think it's so regimented. And I think for young people, they don't really know. And I think sometimes as parents, you almost need to be given that career advice of going, how do we inspire to, maybe if we are all from a manufacturing background, how do we get our kids looking at different things, really? Because I think being stuck as a warehouse apprentice for 3 to 4 years, they just don't want to do it. And within that time period, if other friends are earning way more money, they just go, well, I'll go and do that. So I don't want to miss out on a Saturday night, or I don't want to miss out on having these things.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. And I also think from a parent perspective, because I have many children, they weren't even my children. So I've got my own businesses. 2 of my boys are very much not academic. They were never going to be academic. They absolutely detested school. So I really feel like there is a cohort of people pre-GCSE who you could get into school and get hold of and go, okay, let's just concentrate on a couple of core things, your maths and your English. Let's take the rest of it away. And let's think about what we can go and do, and introduce the thought of an apprenticeship or our industry at that point, pre-GCSE, rather than letting them become the class clown or the naughty kid or any of those labels. Let's show them a different route, a completely different route, and we're missing that trick.
We were literally talking about this yesterday, because I've got 2 children, 12 and 10. If I had to put a bet on today of which one's going to go to uni and which one will probably end up working at Compton Group, I could tell you. Yeah. And I just think... It's a dead cert, mate. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is.
You start gambling.
But I think, you can listen to parents at sports clubs or on the playground, and the pressure that sometimes, I just look at what Caden went through with his SATs, and it was like the way some parents was almost like, this is the pinnacle. And it's just, I just think, to get people going to become bricklayers or going into different places, maybe like year 9, when you think, I've got 3 years left, what do I want to be doing, is how we start inspiring people.
When you look at the Aluminium Federation Apprentice Ambassador Programme, that's all about reaching out into schools and making those connections. And look, my wife's in education. Schools are crying out for industry to come and inspire their pupils, their teachers, their science, their STEM. They really want industry to engage. So, what I've done in the past is build a relationship with your local secondary school. You get funneled to you the best apprentices, because the science teachers or the tutors are looking out for somebody. Yeah, go and talk to this girl or this boy, and they could be working for you in 2 years' time. And it's a great vehicle to get your apprentices going back into schools as role models of what, 14, 15-year-olds might be doing in a couple of years. So that's, apprentices, it's good to look at a little slice, but it starts before that and it continues way after that, because apprentices aren't just 18-year-olds. I've got a 46-year-old apprentice and a 22-year-old apprentice and everything in between, and a 16-year-old apprentice. So we should just think about that learning journey. It's a really good point. Unless we inspire our people every day, they'll leave, no matter what age they are. And young people are probably a bit more mobile and less tied to you than somebody who's been there 20 years. But you just got to keep inspiring your people every day and giving them things to be excited about and talking to them. I meet every employee on their first day, if I can do it, shake the hand and say, you could be doing my job one day. And they all laugh. And I say, why not?
Michael, CEO, Sherwood Stainless. I want to get into the Apprenticeship Awards and obviously how you're affiliated to that. But let's talk about what Sherwoods have been doing. And if we roll back, say, 5 years, 10 years, these conversations have been going on a long time. How do we inspire the next generation? How do we get the next kind of, how do we get these, trying to think of the right way of saying it, basically we just need staff, don't we? We need to get people that are buying into what we're doing as a business. So what were the conversations like a few years back, and what have you been trying to do? What successes have you had as a business?
So I've only been with Sherwoods a couple of years, and before that a long time in the steel trade. But it's the same in Sherwoods as it was in British Steel, Chorus, Tata, Liberty, wherever you want to go. It's the same issues. And it's skills shortages, it's retention, and it's how you inspire people. At Sherwoods, we had 2 years ago, we didn't have any apprentices. I think I've got 9 now, going from 16 to 46. I employ 150 people. That's a pretty good percentage. But I know I've got to keep them excited and, give them projects. I think about my apprentices in a way that maybe graduate trainees were thought about. Rotate them through departments, give them, 3 months here, 6 months there. Give them projects that are nothing to do with their day job, just to get their heads above the parapet, give them visibility. Invite them to senior meetings, to sit in and just see what's happening. So it's, these are all things we've got to inspire all our people by doing every day. And I think, that's just so important. I've got 2 apprentices to start with me last week. I've given them my reception to make over. It's nothing to do with a day job, but they've got to go out and buy some stuff and work with each other and see different departments, and they'll grow and they'll be fantastic with it.
Do you think there's a level, with, it doesn't go necessarily against retention, but when I joined, say, UKF Stainless, I had no idea how big this sector was. Like, I didn't know it was going to be a career path. But, when you've got young people in, do you think there's a level how they realise how big the sector is, of showcasing and taking them to mills, taking them to other suppliers?
Great point.
Because I think as a young person working in, say, a metals company anywhere in, nationally, it's like, I don't think you realise how big this sector is. I don't think you see it as a career path. I think if people go into schools and saying, there's people in this sector earning 150k, do you want to guess it? Metals or manufacturing wouldn't be on that list.
If we do it right, the metals industry is like the Moonies. You're never leaving.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Look, if people are not being sexy, hey, I get excited about it every day.
Yeah.
There is so much going on, whether it's your customers, your suppliers, the technology, the people, whatever else we're doing, it's always about the people, which is why we come back to recruitment, retention, development, apprentices.
But I think a lot of it does come down to seeing it as a career. I do think a lot of times you can just think that you're working for the only company who does stainless or aluminium.
But you've got to make decisions to invite that apprentice to the meeting, or to see a customer, or to see a supplier. Even if they're just riding shotgun and learning and just having their eyes open. Take them to the UK Metals Forum, events like that just show them the scale of what's going on. And, ask them why they couldn't be doing that job. Just give them that aspiration of, why not have that expectation that in 2 years' time they're going to be doing something different? It's fantastic.
How have you found that by doing that, what you've been talking about there for the last 2 years? How have you found that? We've obviously got 9 apprentices. How have you found that going?
I'm same as everybody. I've lost apprentices. It's heartbreaking. But hey, that's life. Maybe the days of signing up and being with a company for 40 years are gone. Maybe there's an expectation that every young person is going to have 10 different roles, but there might be different roles in the same organisation, and that's where we've got to really try. I've lost, apprentices I wish I'd kept. I've got people who started in planning and are now in quality. I've got people who, were team leaders that are now production managers and doing level 5 apprenticeships, and that's part of my retention strategy, and just developing them wherever they are in their career. So you've just got to put the time and effort into people to inspire them and keep them engaged and give them new skills.
When you get in apprentices, I mean, as we're an agency, we don't supply apprentices. We don't do that, but we have had apprentices ourselves within our business, unsuccessfully. But I think that was potentially down to us, if I'm honest. We felt when we were working with apprentices, like apprenticeship kind of partners, that they didn't really do much for us. It was almost like, oh, great, we've got a lead. We're going to get paid some cash by the government, so we'll just whack over some people. And my thoughts, I'll be really blunt, like the people that I was getting, they were rubbish. Like the level was so poor. And I was just saying to them, I was like, look, can't you send me some good ones? Can't I get some better quality people that are coming in? And it was almost like it was tough to feel like I was getting anything that I felt was, I don't know, good enough for what we wanted as a business.
And that's the videographer stuff that people, when you're speaking to people on career fairs, they all want to be TikTokers, YouTubers, or whatever. Yeah, and that was around
influencers,
videographers. Yeah,
podcasters.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Set myself up there, didn't I? But that was for something that you'd believe would be a passion in a young person, and that was still hard. So I can't imagine how difficult it must be when you need someone to become an overhead crane operator.
You've got to interview, you've got to see a few. Some of the best apprentices we've had are through relationships with secondary schools and the kids of people who work for us. So what better advert can you give for your company if parents are willing to bring their kids to work for you? That's just an endorsement.
Do you suffer from any of these problems? Are you asking around your office trying to find a new supplier or source materials? Have you got aged or high-priced stock that you'd like to liquidate anonymously? Or would you like new business from customers that are guaranteed to pay you for your materials? If the answer to any of the above is yes, then you'll be pleased to know that the Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is sponsored by SteelBuy. SteelBuy are a digital platform revolutionising the way businesses trade metal products online. SteelBuy offers risk-free trading where sellers are guaranteed to be paid, and automated processing including certification, logistics and invoicing. The network of vetted buyers and sellers is continually growing, and it's all housed in an easy-to-use trading platform accessible on any device. The online business-to-business marketplace for products is rapidly gathering pace, and SteelBuy are ideally positioned to capture the changing demands of steel buyers. So check out SteelBuy today and be part of the future of metal trading. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Can you just talk to me about how you're working with ALFED? What's that relationship? And again, just hit us with the Aluminium Ambassador Programme and from your perspective, how that kind of looks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for a company called Innoval Technology, and we're a technical consultancy to the aluminium industry. We work with ALFED on various different projects, and in particular, we have been working closely on this Aluminium Ambassador Programme. So this is in partnership with ALFED and Bloodhound Education. And we go into schools and we talk about the Bloodhound project, which is a car that has been developed to break the land speed record, which is pretty cool in itself. And there's a lot of aluminium within the car. So being a representative of the aluminium industry and members of ALFED, we're perfectly placed to deliver that kind of training. So we go into schools and we run a kind of introductory session with kind of like a PowerPoint presentation, I guess. And then we do a hands-on session where we build our own mini cars and we make the wheels from aluminium cans. And that is actually applicable to a whole range and age of students. So I've worked in primary schools, which is really funny and really rewarding, and all the way up to secondary school age as well. Actually, in one of the primary schools, the teacher came up to me at the end of the session and said, these children who are sat over here, they're not really engaging in like typical school activities, and today they've come alive in this workshop. And to see them interacting with those materials and getting hands-on, it's just it's really rewarding, and it's really interesting to see how that kind of sparks their interest and opens their minds to different aspects as well.
Again, Mike and I, we were nattering about this, and we think that you've got to go out, as you're saying, Mike, you've got to go into the schools. You mentioned yourself, we just kind of digress back for a minute, and it's like people that already know the business, people that work within the sector, they're happier to get their kids moving into it. Some of them, not all of them, some of them. So you get good leads that way, don't you? People come in, they're more bought in because they've got family members in there and they've got kind of an idea or an inkling of what the sector's like. You're going in, Rachel, into schools and you're kind of getting people excited, and also looking at those kind of engineers that are missing, that we need in the UK, that don't always come the typical way. You know, they're not always going to be, well, I went to university and did maths, or, you know, sometimes they can still become an engineer without those skill set. But, you know, you're giving people that, oh, this could be a cool thing to do. But how do we then, like, excite them about the sector? Because they can be excited about making a can on, you know, a car with some cans, but then how do we change that mindset where they're thinking, oh, actually, that, like, if I was looking to work, that was cool, but what are the opportunities? Like, how do we do that? Because I think we can go into schools and get kids excited about pretty much anything, really, if you present well. But it's like, how do we get them to move and take that step and start looking at the opportunities are there?
I think probably needs to make them aware of what the opportunities are. So yes, like you said, you can deliver a presentation and say, these are the things that you could be doing, but actually showing them the steps of how they might get there. So when I was earlier in my career, I used to go into secondary schools and speak to sixth form students about the steps that I took to get into the graduate program and into the aluminium industry. I think really engineering in general needs to be a bit more tangible to students. I think that we talk about, you know, what it is, making things. It might be, I don't know, there's a lot of more engineering roles like sustainability and that kind of thing, which didn't exist before. So it's really making them aware of what's available and the steps to get into those.
I'm really keen on role models. So I think to inspire young people, they need to see versions of themselves and think, I could do that. And that's so important from a diversity point of view, you know, on every aspect, whether it's race or gender, just being able to see somebody who's gone down a path. So using your young people to go into schools, it's not for me going into school because they'll just see this old geezer. I think, what's he got to do with my life? But they can see somebody 3 years older than themselves who are passionate about what they do. That's the best ambassador you can possibly have. And you do that, which is amazing. So, you know, those role models, we need them. We all need them at every stage of our career. So we just need that encouragement that somebody's saying you can do this. And the other area to look at are your own employees. So they don't have to be 16, 18 years coming out of school. I've got so many people who joined us as agency workers. I've got a guy who works in my accounts and has got a master's degree in economics. He used to run a store for me. Who knew? Until you go and have a conversation with him. But they've got the potential to go back to university or go on an apprenticeship course. So sometimes the best apprentices are the agency worker that you bring in that has never been given the opportunity, never been given the backing, never seen themselves in that role, never been given the encouragement. So I've got 150 people work for me that, you know, my job is to try and motivate. One of them's got to do my job one day, and everything in between. So it's role modelling I'm really keen on, and we've got some fantastic role models here today who champion.
You were nominated for certain awards, maybe.
Yeah, women in the metals industry. So that's another, you know, fantastic area. But whichever aspect, it's about how do we motivate our people from pre-employment to being working here 20 years.
Just off the back of that, some of the kids and some of the results already that we've had from the Ambassador Programme, it's also highlighted what the industry means to them and how they see things like aluminium and how they see it as part of their daily life. So building the cars and doing some cool things that hands-on that kids weren't really used to doing, because I think a lot of the design technology classes and things aren't necessarily what we might have known them as, but positioning it as, you know, aluminium as a material and other materials are part of your daily life and can be pretty cool with, you know, your laptops, your phones, your cars, your everything that's now driving this kind of sustainable industry perspective as well. They're getting more excited about what that means for them as their future and how they can maybe be a part of some of these quite cool like initiatives and yeah, being more engineers that are designing cool parts for cars and aerospace and things. So we've seen that was quite a nice take on it as well, to just be like, did you know that this is what happens to a can, and did you know this is how you get to school in your car and or on the bus and everything like that. Is putting little snippets of that kind of information to them as well. I just think it's a bigger picture, and actually there's so many elements that they could be involved in as well.
Yeah.
One of the things you've just touched on is this sustainability, and I think we underestimate our young people and how invested they are on saving the planet, broad term, but most of them know a lot more than the adults know about what's going on in the world, and a lot more than we give them credit for. So a pull into what we do is 100% of sustainability. You know, I bang on about the fact that I've been recycling for all these years, and I was recycling before it was a thing, but it is a thing now, and it is cool. So all these rallies that go on and all these young people that are standing up for the environment, that's a great tool for us to go, okay, you want to stand up for the environment? Well, come and work inside companies that are already serving that purpose. I really don't think we're using that enough. And then I also think that the culture within our companies, I mean, you were saying you employ 150 people, and you could be the best boss in the world, and I could be championing the cause, but the layers underneath me have got to buy into that. Now, the parents of the kids that might be coming to work for me, they're going to buy in, you know, their children are going to start paying them rent in a minute, let's get them to work. But what about the other people? Is there a fear of young people coming through as a cultural situation? Are an ageing workforce thinking they're going to take my job? It shouldn't be happening, but I think it's the dark side of it. I think it absolutely is happening, where they don't always make it easy for these young people to get excited about the future and move on through the company. The whole culture needs to change.
That side of it, definitely. I think especially just the metal sector in general, I think there's a level of where, especially with like minimum wages going up now, if you go away from apprenticeships for a second, it's like when you've got young people asking for a certain amount of money and they look at where they was in their career for the same, God, it don't have to make it difficult, because there's almost going, I wasn't far off that myself, they're only a kid, but it's the skills that they've got and the drive to push forward could be more than 2 or 3 people that you may have in your business, and it's feeding that hunger. I think sometimes giving people more responsibility, especially when they're younger, is people are so scared of doing it.
Yeah, and I think maybe the mentorship, back to that point, what if we could come up with something where those that were further up the ladder, they were invested in mentoring this person? What if they were getting something from that? You know, I would imagine that if I'd mentored someone and they went on to win an award, or they got a pay rise, or they got some form of pat on the back, and I was included in that pat on the back because I had been their mentor and I had pulled them through, I'm more likely to do that than if it's just seen as, oh, I've got to look after them now. That's another job that I've got to do. I've got to take responsibility for them. And I think that is happening all over the industry, not just our industry, every industry. The people that are already doing a job that are then given extra responsibility to bring new people on, what reward are they getting?
The flip side of that is you can have people who believe they're better than someone who's got 15 years experience just because they've been doing it for 18 months and they think they should be on the same level financially and going. And I think that's where a younger generation now, they don't stick around. It's almost, if I can't get that now after a one-to-one, it's so easy to ring a recruitment company and see that desired job to just move on, and another company go, yeah, we'll take that. Yeah. And that's, I think it's very difficult in a business, especially if it's quite like our business. It's small, so it's pretty flat. We don't really have people who want to necessarily be the next MD, because they do, then it's not going to be within Compton Group. But what we do a lot of is kind of team building exercise, paying for training. You know, we've probably paid more out in training than some massive blue chip companies in the metal industry, because I think if people feel like they're on a plan, they're more likely to stick. The other side of that, from a flip point from an employer, is if someone signs up for a training course, it's almost if you got to complete it within 12 months or you got to pay it back. There's so many different ways of creating your kind of retention, but it's about being more creative. And I think in the past, you'd have people join a company, they just work there till they retired. And that's gone. It really has gone. And I think that's the one issue with apprenticeships. It's that initial thing we said earlier, signing up and going, I'm going to do this for 4 years. Signing for 4 years, it's almost like, my God, that almost scares it. And I think it's got to have that flexibility with them and not let them lose that hunger. Otherwise, it's pointless, really. The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is sponsored by TW Metals. TW Metals are a stockholder and distributor of nickel alloy, aluminium, titanium and stainless steel products in a range of forms, including tube, bar, pipe, extrusion, as well as sheet and plates. They have sites located in the UK, Europe, the USA and Southeast Asia, and are the largest supplier of aerospace tubes globally. With a whole host of accreditations and in-house processing capabilities, they are the first choice for OEMs, Tier 1s, fabricators and engineering companies across the world, and they're easy to deal with. I worked with them for many years, so I can recommend them. For more details, check out their website or even give them a call to chat about your requirements. Now let's get back to the pod.
Michael, you spoke about having quite a few apprentices come into your business. You said you got nine at the moment. So you've got a good handle on apprenticeships if you've got nearly 10 in there already. So you're passionate about letting these apprentices develop. And I think what I was going to say about 20 minutes ago when I was waffling away was our experience was poor because we didn't feel like we got much help. We took an apprentice on and it was literally like, take this person on, ta-ra, crack on. You write the plan. You create this roadmap for them. We'll see them every couple of weeks or something like that. They'll log on. And effectively we're thinking, well, we lose them for a day while they're going on this. The people that are checking in on them are saying that they're doing training, but I don't really believe they're doing that much with them anyway. So do you think there's too much emphasis, this is where I'm going with this, there's too much emphasis on, say, a you, or a me, or an Amy, anyone in the room, that we've got to be the person that builds the plan, like it was in the old days where there was actually an apprenticeship scheme and there was someone that was looking after the apprenticeships and they were doing the training, and effectively you had a start to finish in your apprenticeship, which doesn't seem to be there. That was our spin on it when we were taking on. So what's your thoughts on that? Do you think there's too much emphasis on the employer and realistically people are pushing these apprentices on, and really it's become more of a fiscal thing than it has?
It's a money train, okay? There's pots of money we're all contributing to. Other companies will spend that pot, or we'll get value from it. And too often the people providing the apprentices are just happy to provide them, sign them up, they go to college and the job done. Is that, does apprenticeship ask too much of the employer? No. Because actually, if I think I can outsource my people development, I've got it wrong. The right approach is for me to feel that actually I've got to have a plan for my apprentices. Amy was saying about that culture of mentorship. If I just give it to the college and expect in 4 years' time I get this skilled and competent employee turn up, hey, that's not going to happen. Part of their process is being at college. But actually, the bigger part is, what are we doing with them? Have we got people who care about them, check on them, develop them, give them time, coach them, talk to them, understand when they're frustrated so they don't leave? That's the important thing about any development, whether you put a label on it called apprenticeship or not. I guess what's special about apprenticeship is it's a transition years. So they're coming out of full-time education very often, and this is often their first step into work. They might have done a Saturday job, but suddenly they've got to get out of bed and do a shift. And that's tough. So it's good that they get that sort of lifeline back into college to have a different experience. So it's a good transition. But we can't outsource responsibility for our people. We've got to own it and develop a culture that drives it.
Do you think it's easy to onboard people when you've got 150 people? Then it's, for small businesses, or, there's people that we all probably service in a way where they're a one-man band, if you like, and they're trying to grow. And where onboarding new starters, has to be a process. And I think sometimes you can be guilty of bringing someone in and almost not doing the onboarding process, checking in on day one, checking in week one, and so on. And I think sometimes, probably for your company, when you're a big organisation, there's those processes, there's those procedures, those check-ins.
Yeah, I've got 4 companies in the UK. Wolverhampton, I've got 150 people. I've got 15 up in Mansfield.
Yeah.
And my other companies are little small companies, with big egos. So it just comes down to what you prioritise. And in some ways, being in a small company can really feel like home. You can feel like family and people that care for you. And look, sometimes you get lost in a big company. So there's no magic rule. It can work whichever way you do it. And every company will be different. I'll do it different way. Other people around this table will do it. And we'll all find the way that works with our culture. But we've got to put the apprentice or the employee at the heart of it. There's a saying in education, you put the student at the heart of education. You don't do things and the pupils are a byproduct. Same with our people. Whether we think we're running furnaces or recycling or presses or CNCs, actually, we're just managing people. That's where the value is in the metals trade. It's getting the most of our people. So every culture is different, big or small organization. It's just how you choose to engage with that young person.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm disagreeing with Michael, but I am. So getting back to the point of structured scheme, right? Now, my take is a lot of the reason why it's not as successful nowadays as it was before is because kids are internet fueled. They have mentor videos on their phone every 10 seconds, right? They know their path anyway. These kids, we've only got one apprentice at the moment. These kids essentially are plotting their own route. So if I was to give our only apprentice a structured plan, within about 2 weeks, that'd be almost binnable. And he has his own plan for what he wants to do, and that changes on a weekly, monthly basis. But I think giving them a bit of self-determination brings the best out of the kids. My take.
Brilliant. Wouldn't disagree at all. And that's
I think you're supposed to disagree. That was
I'm
actually disagree with you.
That's your culture. And what works for you won't work for me and vice versa. And that's fantastic.
I think they should be able to help design where they're going with it and look at it. I, as an owner of a smaller company, give me a framework. Just give me a framework that tells me, look, really, you've not done a lot of apprenticeship work before. Once a month, this is a bit of guidance for you, not for them, for you, how to get the best from your apprenticeships. Because, to be honest, I'm scared of them. I'm scared that I'm going to bring someone in and then I'm going to get very, very busy and they're going to be left floating out in the abyss, and I'm then layering another load of pressure on myself when I'm already stressed trying to run a business that I'm not doing the right thing. So it's coming from a good place, but actually, am I reserved about it because I don't want more pressure on myself? Yes. Could I do with someone holding my hand when I get into this apprenticeship trail? Yes. Is it great speaking to you because you've done it and you're an advocate for it? And I could now I've linked up with someone who I can say, oh, can we talk about that a bit more? How does it work for you? How do you make it work? But until today, sitting here, having been in business for 30 years, I'm quite honestly quite scared of taking on apprentices.
We're all saying, we're all in the industry, so we're like, this is a great place to work. So if we've got people listening to this podcast who might be at this point thinking, well, I still don't know why I'd work in it. What's great about the aluminium sector, but also more widely the metal sector?
So for me, I didn't really know a lot about the aluminium or metal sector at university. I studied mechanical engineering and then went into a job in a hospital, actually. And I got a call from a recruiter and they said, there's this company that is producing aluminium and they want you to come for an interview. So I went up there. I didn't really know what to expect. We did kind of this, all these challenges for a full day. And then at the end of the day, they said, okay, great, we'd like you to come back tomorrow for a final interview. So I said, okay, great. And in that final interview, I went on a tour of the factory. And I was overwhelmed by how cool and how massive the factory was. I think that there's not as much exposure to the industry when you're at younger age, and even through my university years, I didn't get that either. I think that within the aluminium industry itself, there is a lot of options. So as I said, I came through a graduate program. I rotated through several different departments. I learned a lot about the different parts of processing aluminium, which are all very different and very fascinating. And there's a lot of technical detail that you can get involved in. If you're really into the technical side of things, there's a lot of other aspects that you can get involved in. We talk a lot about, on my course at university, there were a lot of other girls on the course, but all of them were doing product design. However, when we came into the factory environment, there's a lot of design work that goes on there. Like, can you build me this? I need a bespoke part of this. And I think there's a lot of intricacies to how the aluminium industry works that you just don't appreciate. So after working in this factory for 5 years or so, I now work for the consultancy. I've been doing that for nearly 6 years now. But really just the variety of my work on a day-to-day basis, whether it's delivering training courses, helping people solve a particular problem, or, visiting factories all around the world. It's very, very diverse. It's very fun. And the aluminium industry generally is very supportive. Everybody's very nice so far. And I think that it's a really interesting place to work if you want to develop in those different areas. I don't think you need to be pigeonholed as such.
Do you think there's enough scope for it, like in terms of, with what's going on in the UK at the moment, after Brexit and that, there still seems to be this plan, let's build. You're working as a consultant now, so you're seeing all these different aluminium businesses in the UK. Like, what are their plans? Are they bullish about the future? Are they excited about it? Is there the growth? Is there the funding? Is this a good place? Is this a good place to send your kids?
In my personal opinion, yes. I think it's an exciting place at the moment. I think, like you said, with Brexit, things are always going to be up and down. There's a lot more investment in kind of the UK manufacturing, which probably some of the other people here can talk a bit more about. But I think that if you speak to any of the aluminium companies, they're all looking to invest, particularly around like recycling. There's a big push on this sustainability, and with aluminium being such a sustainable material and being able to be that endlessly recycled material, there's a really positive outlook for the aluminium industry. That's probably the UK base. There's lots of other companies worldwide that I work with, but we'll stick with the UK.
The metals industry is the best place to work. I promise you. The people first of all, but whatever you want to do, there's something to do. Whether you're interested in IT, young people are mad about recycling. There's an international dimension to it, which is just epic if you want to travel or see the world. If you're a tech head or a geek like me, you can obsess about CNC machining or laser scanning. So there's just so much potential. It just comes, I think you said the variety and the people, great people. And you can just, whatever your interest, there's something in this industry for you.
How did you end up in this sector? How did you end up working in the metal industry?
Just a sad engineer who came from an industrial town and went into engineering. So I started as an engineer and got into metals. But
Ever left?
Yeah. But, done a lot. But what I like are the customers and the suppliers. It's just being part of that supply chain and just seeing what we do and pointing out to my family, we make that, or we do that, or we supply them, or, they're one of our customers. I love that.
If we move it on to the Aluminium Federation.
Yeah, well, can I pick off the last question first?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Because I had a good one for that. So we, what Mecatherm essentially do is we're the largest last bastion of kind of the old furnace industry in the UK, right, in what we do. So our mission is we go to 36, 37 countries around the world. So if you're a young kid coming in, then I'm offering you a ticket to go to Austin, Texas and see top secret cars being made. I'm offering you a ticket to go to the Middle East in the cool parts of the world. Weirdly, they make aluminium in all the cool bits of the world, right? So essentially these kids are coming in and what we've tried to do is build on that brand to represent the last of England. When we go to a show now, we put a video on showing Only Fools and Horses and the 2012 Olympics and anything cool about England, we claim it because we're the last ones, right? So you got all these kids coming on board saying we're kind of fighting for a cause here, and that's one of the reasons what we try and make a cool brand to bring those on and to retain these people, and it works at the moment. But as far
where do I sign up?
Yeah. So as far as Aluminium Federation, the reason we first got involved, or Mecatherm first got involved with this quite a few years ago, it's when we're away and we're facing an international client, often at the other side of the room against us will be the likes of Innoval or the likes of other UK companies. We're sought after all over the world. So to connect with them in the UK and learn how these other guys operate, and we learn and share with each other and try and use that as a base for sharing knowledge, made it really good for us to kind of adapt along those lines. Why we stayed and then kind of invested more in it was a sign for us that we were doing well. So essentially we're sitting in a room with a few hundred people, and we've got a big table now, and we're obviously making it out in the world, and it was somewhere we could kind of show back to the UK that the industry's still booming, just not necessarily in the UK at the moment. It will at some point, but the UK not so much. And that's why we kind of did that, yeah.
Do you think that's one of the most important things, just building not just a personal brand for yourself as a kind of way to instigate people seeing and getting excited about what you're doing, but trying to make your business look attractive? You know, is that been kind of a key thing that you've been thinking over the years, where you're like, you know, we really need to do this. It's not just good enough to just offer someone a job like we all had when we first kind of started in the sector.
We built this story around creating a mission, right? So it's not, let's say we take young kids on, but they're on a mission. We got them involved years ago in sustainable stuff before it was really cool. We've had to change the logo to show that we're doing it now, but we were doing it kind of quite a while back. We lost a lot of orders in the late 90s to a big rival who no longer exists. And we switched.
Good to know.
Yeah. We switched to recycling to compensate for the defeats we were taking from these guys. So we switched to it from a commercial reason a long time back, and then it became really cool. At the time we got into it, it was not cool at all. So these kids are on this mission, and for them, it's a cool brand. It's in the industry. It's like we do when we go to a show. You never quite know what we're going to come up with or what they're going to see. We went to Nashville and put Chesterfield chairs and a croquet pitch there. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like come with us and be part of Britain abroad, which it is a mission. It's UK PLC trying to get work and bring money back to the UK for this industry. That's why the aluminium industry is cool. The people that seem to know a lot about it are still based in the UK, and they're in high demand.
With regard to ALFED, I want to move on to how you're helping members, because I think, you know, you kind of touched on it a bit, Amy. It's like, I might take some apprentices on, I might take some younger people. If you ignore apprentices, just take some people on that are younger, that we're trying to, you know, get into the metal sector. And you're thinking, I got time to train them. We hear it all the time. It's one of the biggest things for me and Mike. People come on and say, right, I want to take someone on that does X, Y, and Z. I can't train them. So what's going on with ALFED, and how are you trying to assist businesses to bring on the next gen?
So we've had a lot of change at ALFED, as all of our lovely members here know anyway, but I think now we're in a really good position to have a lot more interaction with our members to kind of drive some of these things forward. I think in the past we've known that there's been a need for it, haven't really been able to see where that will be able to go and what we can do. And I think we're good at offering some of the basic things. So we run training courses that are kind of introductory into aluminium and just for, like we say, these new starters, but also for anybody that's maybe coming in even from like a sales perspective or something, just to give them a bit of a touch on what the industry is and how you can be involved and what aluminium is. Like, they sometimes come into it and they're selling it or whatever, but they don't actually know what the product is. So we're trying to build on some of those like fundamentals that we can offer anyway, and actually building that into our membership benefits next year. We're going to be offering a lot more access to free kind of content, free training, free support advice, free technical advice as well, because we're still seeing so much kind of demand of just random inquiries here, there and everywhere about, you know, extrusion defects and things that are coming up, which again, some of the newer people coming into the industry aren't being made aware of how they can then deal with these problems. So we've done things like develop like cheat sheets for just, you know, even people just on the kind of reception or something of a company that might be dealing with these calls, and just trying to get that knowledge out there a bit more as well. But I think we're really keen now to also present, like we were just saying, aluminium as this, you know, critical material and a critical metal for not only a sustainable UK manufacturing industry, but just for a sustainable future in general, and everything we're doing in the UK. And like Mark said, we've got the experience, we've got the expertise, we've got so many amazing projects and things going on. So many of our members are working on really cool initiatives and kind of innovations that we want to be presenting, but we also want to be then taking that to government and showing and saying, like, this is what we've already got going on, this is why we need more investment, this is why we need an industrial strategy that encompasses this and allows us to actually build on it and make sure that but we've got areas for green investment, we've got areas for jobs, and actually presenting it as a whole for our members. And then we can kind of break down nice verticals, members say, this is what's going on in recycling, this is what's going on in extrusions and development, and it all then hopefully works as a big umbrella for that.
But it's building on the power of the members. Like, for example, at the ALFED dinner, in all my time, 2, 3, 4 years of it, you've paid a celebrity to talk about their personal experience as part of a dinner experience. The power of the members says that someone like Michael comes along and says, well, hang on, we can do this instead. And then suddenly ALFED's focused on, oh, hang on, we're connecting to the younger people in the industry, bringing them to this dinner, rewarding them and their team that they represent, and kind of trying to boost that through the membership. And so yeah, I suppose it's the same as you're saying. It's using the brilliant ideas from some of the membership to boost the industry.
I think we're really lucky now as well. Like, ALFED is a 60-plus-year-old association, and it has got that whole core at the federation. It's got a long-standing membership and it's got a long-standing industry. But I think it's been really good, especially this year as well, to see that there's been a shift in how we present our members, but how we present the sector. And like you say, the dinner and our business briefing, I think at the end of this year will be hopefully somewhere where we kind of encompass that and say, this is where we want to go forward with, this is where we want to actually be championing more about our members and listening to members, and not maybe doing some things that have been done in the past just because they've always been done that way. So it's that shift.
There's a really cool thing that happens as well. So because of LinkedIn, which is great, right? Then the youngest and brightest within the industry want to do stuff with ALFED, because they then get to put that I've worked on this committee, or I've done this task, or I've done this thing as part of ALFED, because so we're this group that allows them to kind of reference this work they've done with people like some of the brilliant people in the UK are quite amazing. And the clients we work with pay a lot of our members to do some incredible work. So these youngsters are all coming together through us.
As an association that's trying to drive changes from the top and affect change within government, how's it going?
Well, aluminium seems to always, unfortunately, come second fiddle to steel anyway, or maybe even further down the line from steel. But I think we've now kind of accepted this and thought, actually there's a few more initiatives and a few more projects out there that ALFED and I've been keen to be involved in to present us as more of this collective. So like I say, the Back British Metals initiative is one that's just launched. We launched it at the UK Metals Expo the other week. That's a collective of kind of smaller trade associations and everything from cobalt all the way down to sort of platinum metals and everything. So we've got a solid group within it, but it's more about presenting metals as a collective to government and saying, this is what's actually going on. Were you aware that we have such a foundation industry in the UK already around all these kind of different elements? And then within that, we can break it down and kind of say, this is what aluminium's doing within that. So I think we've seen that aluminium on its own is going to struggle to really, really put across a good kind of use case to say, this is what we're doing and everything. So as that collective umbrella, I'm hoping we can be a bit more visible in what we're doing, but it also then everything we've done already from our manifesto, and it all aligns with this industrial strategy idea. So we're basically trying to present the government what they need to build their industrial strategy, because at the moment we still don't know what their council looks like or whatever they're kind of phrasing that way. So if we can actually say to them, this is where we're going with it, this is where we think you should be aligned, then hopefully that'll mean less work for them in that sense, and then they can kind of play to our narrative as well, and it will all benefit all metals as well as just aluminium in that way.
The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a recruitment agency operating in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. With a large, engaged network of candidates and clients, we help businesses make great hires in sales, operational, technical, quality and managerial roles, as well as assisting people in their careers by matching their unique skills and aspirations to businesses that are hiring. Having worked with more than 200 niche businesses since 2019, Compton Group have become the go-to recruitment partner for many of our industry's leading names. So talk to us about your next career move or let us work with you on your business's next hire. Compton Group, powering employment in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors.
I speak to people who are MDs, business owners, who would prefer to have the work life pre-COVID, shall we say, than how it is now, but are scared of what will happen if they fight back against working from home. You know, because I always thought work-life balance in a way was almost what some people go on about. It was like kids' assemblies, sports days, you know, Christmas plays, dentist appointments. If you needed to leave, you just left. I didn't work anywhere where that was, but now it's like, where have people say, oh, we've had someone today, basically we're throwing like having the sofa delivered. But then you listen to what the business owners are saying regarding, we're in September now, and they look at what holidays still left to be taken. It's like, it's frightening the amount of days that people haven't took holiday because of these things where normally you'd book a half a day, you no longer use.
Staff will go and watch kids' sports events. I don't think I've watched one. That doesn't make me a terrible parent, does it, in case everyone else did?
No.
But essentially, that was something that happened at school, yeah? No, staff will go and attend. But that's not holiday. That's work-life balance. And that's something that you just go do now. I'm like, whoa, hang on. Where's such as... Oh, he's watching the kids' football match.
Yeah, but are we in danger of just becoming moody old gits? You know, when we had it tough when we were young people today have an easy life. So what? Okay, that's not a bad thing. Yeah, the world is changing.
If it doesn't stop your business from being competitive, I completely agree. I think there's a level, but I think we obviously as recruiters do a lot of cold calling, a hell of a lot. And I can be ringing big organisations and getting through to Vodafone answer phone messages at parts of the day that you'd think would never happen before. So does if it's okay, but does it affect businesses being competitive?
Well, yeah, the bottom line still has to work, just a given. So within that, there's a whole spectrum of ways you can run. You know, Amazon are just bringing people back to work. We don't have people working from home, but we're very flexible. So everyone's got a different spin. But it's different post-COVID. It's different in a technology-driven world. You know, 5 years ago, Teams wasn't a thing that we used every day. Now it is. So that's just the evolution of the working world. It'll change, it'll settle, it'll be different in 5 years' time again. We've just got to learn how to work with it.
If your business doesn't do, say, working from home, everyone's in the office, how do you do flexible and work-life balance when you're looking to employ, when maybe do you just not look at those people, or how do you do it in your business?
We're just pretty clear that we expect you to be here more or less 5 days a week, because that's what we believe in. We're very flexible on lots of stuff, but that's our rules. And if that doesn't work for you, okay, we're not the organisation that you want. Employment's a two-way thing. We're choosing the candidate, and the candidate's choosing us. And there's no point putting lipstick on it and pretending it's pretty and conning them, because if you con them, 2 weeks in, they're realising that you've conned them. So you may as well be upfront, tell them how it is, sell them everything that's brilliant about you, and then I'll make choices.
Are we nearly at a point where you can't discriminate against someone who wants to work? Are we nearly at that point now?
Yes, we are.
As in, genuinely, like...
So, yeah, genuinely, yeah.
Yeah, we are, yeah. We are,
So, for example, you can't have that conversation. I mean, it might not even come up, like asking someone how old they are, even though you can see they're clearly 100 years old. You can't ask.
Yeah, it's a problem.
And the legislation's changing, isn't it, potentially?
Yeah, it could be on for a 4-day week. Potentially. Now, these are the...
We're looking at that in anticipation, as in, how would that work? How do you do 37 hours over... It's quite complicated maths.
I've got a business that does a 4-day week. It works great for them.
Yeah.
But for them, not for the other parts of the business.
I think legislating for it is absolute madness. My place is busy 5 days a week, and I need people on the ground dealing with the people that are coming in and out of that site. They've got to cover the health and safety. They've got to physically be on the ground. The positions that mean they don't physically need to be on the ground, potentially, they could do some hours from home. But there's got to be a fairness about it, hasn't there? I've got a girl who is brilliant, and one of her daughters isn't very well. So rather than losing her completely, I can be flexible with her. She can do 10 till 2 in the office, and she will work from home around those hours. But if she wasn't within the office for some of the time, she would completely lose the thread of the shipping and which containers are going where and which merchants we're dealing with. And actually, she will tell you herself she wouldn't be as good as her job. She'll put her hands up and say that. It very much depends, surely, on the type of company. It can't be legislation.
100% agree. Also, circling back round to apprentices, part of that apprenticeship is transitioning into work. So,
yeah,
you build teams, don't you? You want people that are passionate about your business, that know it from the inside out. So sitting 4 days a week at home and popping in 1 day a week, that just doesn't work in terms of building culture and passion and ownership and belief.
And how do you mentor someone, and how are they mentored if both of you are at home?
Over Teams.
Yeah, we're different way.
But it's amazing how many CNC machinists don't want to work-life balance, isn't it? It's always the certain kind of, it's just become, I just think after COVID, people just come back to work with completely new routines. Whereas people now will be like, I need to work from home certain days because I need to look after the dog. I mean, you just never
we're
hear
in
that.
danger just of moaning again. Look, we've just got to manage that stuff. And if our organisations don't work for an individual, shake their hand and wish them good luck, and recruit a team that does work for you and believes in the things you believe in. And
How have you managed with it? Because I know you're saying about moaning. Obviously, you've got 150 people. How that must have, after COVID, it must have had challenges. I mean, how, for those who are kind of whinging, as you're saying, about having to deal with people with work-life balances, how have you managed to have people 5 days a week and not have these headaches then?
there's no magic answer. You just got to manage your people, know them. We're saying just be flexible, give them, things when they need it, be there for them to support them, but just have boundaries and expectations. If you look across industry, absence rates have doubled since COVID, generally. In my own organisation as well, I've got to deal with that. It's not sustainable for me. And, that's a symptom of I'm probably not dealing with that well enough. There's an expectation, there's a belief that if I've got a sniffle, I can stay at home. And that's for me to manage. That's the fun of being in leadership, isn't it? That's what we're here for.
Do you think it's a topic for younger people when they're coming in? I mean, we're talking about it now because it's a problem. People aren't coming in so much. People want more flexibility. It's an issue. But when you say going into schools and we're trying to get younger people in, are they saying that they don't want to work a 5-day? Are they saying that they don't want to be mentored? They're saying they don't want to be in the office. Like, how are you finding it in general? You're all running with companies. Like, what are your thoughts on people coming in? Are they actually asking for it?
I don't think it's the younger generation.
Man, neither do I.
I think it is older people who have got lots to juggle and have had the luxury of being able to do so without causing themselves enormous stress, which certainly when I had 5 at school running 2 businesses, did I stress myself out too much? Did I nearly burn out? Yes. Was that the right thing to do? Absolutely not. But now it's just an easy option. But I'm going to speak up for the younger generation, and I'm going to say they are hungry. You find the right ones, they're hungry. They want the overtime. They want the money. They want to do more. How can they get on, and how quickly can they get there? So it becomes more of a generational thing about being comfortable, whereas let's give them a go. If they want to climb the ladder and they want to do it quickly and they want to get stuck in, then at least give them half a chance. Because this would escalate very quickly all the way up to government level, where one great big brush would get cast across the whole thing, and that would be very, very wrong for everybody.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about what you were saying earlier, Amy, about money. I was going to give a specific example here. Now, there's a guy I speak to quite regularly, runs a really large organisation in the UK. I won't name who they are, but he was saying that the issue he has with apprentices when he brings them in, because he has a lot of them, is money. Exactly what you were saying. They're not paid at the same level as someone that isn't an apprentice. And because you can bring apprentices in that a little bit later, you know, there is still that kind of, well, I can just get them a little bit on the cheap. It's quite useful to be able to get some headcount in, especially when you've got so many employees, and having cheaper headcount is advantageous. Now, what he was saying was similar to what you mentioned a little bit earlier, but someone might be in for, say, 6 months, 7 months. If they give us a call, they're experienced, and another company, yes, please, thanks, get them off that apprenticeship scheme and they can come straight in and work with us. And I said to him, I said, well, how are you managing that? Because that must be a problem. That must be something that's happening regularly. And he just said, I just pay him. He said, as soon as that kind of conversation happens, I put their money up. I don't keep them on that lower level. So I was just wondering again, is this an issue? And again, when people are coming in as apprenticeships, should we really be looking at it and going, well, we shouldn't really be just trying to take the monetary advantage. We should be getting those people in and getting them straight on the right wage immediately if they're right, rather than potentially lose them.
My thoughts on it are, I want somebody to want to work for me. That's number one. Now, if you want to come and work for my company because it's an industry that you want to be in and you can see kind of the culture and you think I want that, then the likelihood is you will come in at that lower pay grade. If that person then comes in and they show some skill and they want to work, then they can move up the ladder. But I think we have a culture problem as well, because a lot of the people that need to have access to apprenticeships cannot afford to live on that wage. Not all of them, but some of them have already moved out at 16. They're already having to pay their own rent, run their car, pay their own food bills. Their mum and dad are not doing it for them. And that demographic are getting a double hit. So their friends are sitting at home signing on or whatever they're doing and getting this amount of money. They're being ridiculed for getting up in the morning to go to work and be on such a low wage. They're actually having to get out of bed for the first time in their life and do it. Can you imagine? It's like going through quicksand. Every single thing is against you. The money's against you. Your friends are laughing at you and you've got to pay your bills and you can't get out of it. It just doesn't work for that demographic at all. We've got to change it.
We see a lot when people are looking to get off the apprenticeships after they've normally done 12 months. And one of the main things is that kind of people aren't always lucky that you just mentioned they're living on their own, or if not, mom and dad need a return. If you know, especially a lot of people that we spoke to over the last kind of 12 months is where if they're living with, say, a single mum and it's going, I need more money coming in the house, son, daughter, we need you to put more in, and that's when they come off. And the amount of people who find themselves in that situation at such a young age is incredible. And I think that can only get worse with what when you've got people at any level now whinging about how expensive life is, people that you'd never hear whinging about how expensive things are. For apprentices, it's only going to get worse, really. And that is an issue, that it's almost an outdated pay rate, really.
There is a danger we just see them as a cheap resource. That's the road to hell, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Because they'll resent it, they'll leave. You won't treat them as they deserve to be treated. It's a really good challenge for us all.
I just think that can just be so overlooked. I think it's very hard to continually doing those one-to-ones development areas of where you're looking to them going, because you can get so consumed in your own world of business that your ambition of seeing what's coming, what's going on day to day, that you can just not spend enough time with everyone, even if they're an apprentice or even your key people. I think you can just get so worked up in your own world that you're not sitting down with people enough.
No matter what we do with development and training, comes a bottom line. If you can't afford to go out, and your mates can, they'll make a choice. So, yeah, money matters.
We missed a point earlier. What was the topic?
So I just wanted to add that when I was younger in the aluminium industry, ALFED used to put on a course for young leaders in the aluminium industry. And I was lucky enough to, my company I was working for at the time paid for me to go on this kind of outward bounds course in the Lake District. So it was a week long, and lots of young people from the aluminium industry went to the Lake District. We had to do various different like hill walks or jumping in the lake, canoeing, building rafts, lots of team building exercises. But it was also kind of interspersed with this classroom learning about leadership and various different aspects of like progressing in the industry. And in terms of, it touches on a few things, I suppose, like you mentioned earlier about kind of the breadth of the aluminium industry. It really helped to understand how all the other companies in the aluminium industry are kind of fitting and where they're working. But it also helped to kind of have a base and meet some contacts who were younger. I think it was good for the retention of me in the industry in particular. And like just thinking about it now, I can think of at least 7 people who were on that course with me who I still see on a regular basis at ALFED meetings, or who I'm in contact with on a more regular basis. So I think that in terms of retention, it doesn't always have to come from your employer. And I think being a member of ALFED in that respect was really useful for retaining, obviously, a few of us in the aluminium industry.
On things like that, do you feel like companies, we do enough for things like that now? Because I was lucky when it was 2011 when I joined, and I think of like the countries I went to see, as what you were mentioning, there's not many people I can speak to now who have, when they're around, say, 25, 26, been in this sector for a while, have had those opportunities that I had, really, going to expos internationally, going out and seeing customers. You can speak to some people who have been internal sales for 6, 7 years and never had the opportunity to just go and see what their customers actually do. Do you feel that we're almost not spending the budget on those type of things no more?
No, we make a point of this. So with our apprentice, our only one, he's worked in at least 3 countries already, and we'll go to sales exhibitions, actually 4 sales exhibitions. He'll go and visit clients, really big meetings, because you only kind of learn the good stuff in the difficult times, right? So he goes to the key, or will be taken to key ones. He'll go on site and work kind of in the sweat and pressure of it all, just to see what that's like and see some of the great people that already do that. So we do it. It's important. You've got to do it.
How long's that apprentice been with yourselves?
He's just finished his scheme just now, and we bumped him up to a proper salary, as it was.
So what's that, 3 years?
Yeah, I think it was 3 years.
And what was your kind of induction? Was it as you make up as you go along, or did you have that kind of plan in action? That's what you wanted to do?
We worked closely with the college or whatever the organisation was that gave them to us. We put a plan together, but I am very keen for him to steer his own path. So, for example, in this particular person's case, he wasn't really sure whether he wanted to be an engineer, or he's currently lumbered in sales, or if he wants to work on site, if he wants to do whatever. So it was a case of let him try all those different things out, see what happens, and we did. If they're good, they quickly become an important part of the team, no matter how young they are or how old, because, again, getting back to Amy's point, the very young kids that didn't go through COVID as a worker, I think they still have that energy that we kind of recognise from when we were young. They've got very similar. People that went through it kind of lost a bit of edge, like the world was ending, so maybe they've got a different take on things. So this kid does put a shift. He's always there. Last is always there. First, he wants to go and do whatever he wants to do, so he will be rewarded. And I said to a couple of people earlier, Mectherm in the 90s was brilliant at this apprenticeship type stuff, to the point where one of our board is an apprentice from the 90s. So that's how much they believed in it. It's just that from our perspective, it hasn't kind of worked for us since, and we're trying our hardest to try and get it back. And that was one of the reasons we got into ALFED as well.
It is easy to get busy, though, and forget to do this stuff. That's what I find personally, that you forget to take people out to visit customers, to visit a trade show, because we're all running 100 miles an hour, and whatever good intentions we've got, these things get left behind.
It's so difficult to do, isn't it? But I think, especially even with your experience team, one-to-ones, all these kind of things is what you bring out of them, isn't it? And people tell you so much. And sometimes what we do with our team, and sometimes you get stuff out that you don't even realise is a problem. So I think it's just making the time to do it, isn't it?
Or an opportunity. There's some good stuff as well. It's not always problems. When do you want to what? No,
my husband's really good at this. So we have this thing with a lot of our younger generation, and he'll plan a meal or whatever, and he'll go, right, this week I'm going to teach you how to eat and drink. And they all look at him like he's got two heads. We know how to eat and drink. What on earth are you talking about? But learning how to hold yourself in a room when there is alcohol everywhere and in a business environment, that should be part of an apprenticeship framework, because it's as equally important as anything else. And developing the confidence in people to be able to do that within a safe space with just you before you send them out into the big wide world. I think every company should do that.
It's an ALFED course.
I was going to say, I think I need to write that down before the ALFED dinner this year. We need it as our business briefing. There it is. Yeah. There's a few people that were.
I would.
Yeah, we did speak about this, if that's right. Yeah. So just to finish off then, let's get back into this event then that ALFED are going to be doing. I know we spoke about the dates earlier, but if people are ALFED members and they want to come along, how do they do that? And people outside of ALFED, can they be coming along to this as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so the setup is, like I said, we have a business briefing during the day, which is very much looking at forecasting, market updates. We have some quite different presentations as well. We'll have a focus on skills, so obviously that leads into the evening, but we usually try and do some slightly more off-book things to keep people interested, so looking at aluminium in different applications, and we try and tie in some kind of tasting of gin or wine or something that comes within an aluminium product. So yeah, I might need to look at that. Your husband teaching us all how we can do that beforehand. But yeah, business briefing is very much more what it does, what it says on the tin in that sense. And then we have the dinner in the evening. This year we've got a great speaker who I think I can probably announce now because it should be out by this time. Someone who Michael recommended, a guy called Charlie Fogarty, who comes with the most amazing inspirational story. I'll save that for the night and for him to explain. But it's then highlighting this element of being inspired to try and be the best version of yourself within a workplace, but within just your sort of social environment as well. And hopefully it'll be a very different take on some of the other things that we've done in the ALFED dinner, because we want to really show that as an industry we have inspiring leaders, we have role models, we have the kind of support there as well that we want ALFED to be driving forward. So yeah, anyone that wants to still join us, we have still got some tickets. You can go on either the ALFED website, or we'll hopefully put a link up, but just get in touch with the ALFED team and we can see if we can get more people involved this year.
How did you find that?
Challenging.
Yeah.
Challenging. That's a lot of people. There's a reason that people don't interview that many people. It's difficult. It felt a little bit like we're in a meeting at points. I think normally when we do podcasts, for me anyway, I feel like I'm a little bit more in control of the structure. But yeah, with so many people, it made it a little bit challenging. But I think there was a lot of good discussion points in there, a lot that we could dive into further. The one thing that really stood out for me was what Amy said early on in the podcast. I don't really think we drilled into it enough, was about the money and bringing people in if they're coming in as apprentices rather than just straight onto being a full-time member of staff, that their money is lesser than other people, and that being a real issue, in my opinion. I mean,
yeah, she made some really good points. I think apprenticeships they need rebranding for a 2024 career and going forward. I think apprentices, the name, as soon as you think apprenticeship, you think of basically it's cheap. We're gonna have to get through this. And I think where we are now is that people coming out of school or people coming into their careers, they want to earn really good money straight away. I think when we look at minimum wage, even minimum wage, if we just go back 5 years when we set this business up, a 23 to 25k role, which is predominantly what we're filling, like it's like entry level. That was an established, you're basically doing internal sales between 25 and 28. Now you're going minimum wage is nearly 24,000. I think it needs rebranding. I think it needs companies, and this is the hard one. Obviously, we spoke a lot about this. Is kind of when you're in the day-to-day and you're running at 100 mile an hour, you're not always thinking of your apprentice who's been there for 4 or 5 months, who's checking in, doing those check-ins, talking about where they're looking to be, and are they in the right bit? I think apprentices can be so regimented, where it's so department. You know, we've seen it in the past, and where people have been doing warehouse apprentices, mechanical engineering. But someone might start in a mechanical engineering apprentice, and then they drop out because they think this isn't for me, and then they just leave the company. But if there's these regular chats going, like, I'm actually not enjoying this, but I actually like the culture of the business, where can I go? And I think, you know, when I did my apprenticeship at UKF, you were so you were in loads of different divisions. And I think when people get funding for a particular part, and that's what the college day is going to be, it means it's too structured, which I don't think helps. It helps for those who want to be a mechanical engineer or so on, of those ones, and I'm sure people who want to be a plumber or an electrician outside of different trades, it works. But I think when you're working in a business where there's so many department heads, and you're so young and you're kind of not too sure, you've kind of picked it, you spoke to your parents, they think it's a good idea, but it's too structured for young people. I think young people want, you know, how many times do you get young people's CVs and it's kind of, they started off working in a bar, then they've worked in a coffee shop, then they're working into a different business. They might have 5 or 6 jobs. But I think because we're so critical on CVs now, especially those who have had different opportunities, by 21, say, people could just look at you and go, you're a job hopper. Well, how many jobs did you have before under 21?
I had a few.
Yeah, like most people. But I think because recruiters now and the powers who look after the apprenticeships have so many, basically people dishing out CVs and people just fill in application forms, them days have almost gone. 2 people who look after careers in this country, how it stands: recruitment companies and people who do the funding for apprenticeships, who place the apprentice. And when we've had apprentices apply here, you're asking the same questions as you would for someone who's mid-30s as you would for someone who's young. Yeah. It's unfair.
Yeah.
But that's how it works now.
I think there's been a problem with apprenticeships in the sector for a long period of time. I think you can always look to the big apprenticeship ambassadors, some of these really big businesses where they have big headcount, they have departments, and they can do what you're alluding to, which is have people in, you know, a very structured apprentice. You're going to be here, you're going to be here, you're going to be here. And they're kind of these blue chip companies where people are really attracted to go and do apprenticeships. I think the smaller businesses, that's where the issues are. And I think some of the topics that we discussed in this podcast, but more generally in the sector, is there's issues attracting people into the sector. We still go and see businesses where they look terrible. You go through the front door, they're a mess, they're on the back end of, you know, industrial estates, and younger people are just not attracted to go into these places of work. What ALFED are trying to do here is try and champion apprenticeships through aluminium businesses, but it's a wider issue in the metal community, and I think it's good to kind of get behind what they're trying to do. This is the first time they're going to have one of these Apprenticeship Awards. I think it'll be something that's going to keep growing, and I think other federations will kind of follow suit as well. So we as a business want to get involved with it and obviously champion the idea of not just apprentices but young people coming into the industry sector, because there's fantastic opportunities to be had in the sector even if you don't go to university. And I think now there is, with many young people, because of the cost of university, I think the idea of maybe taking a modern apprenticeship in the metal engineering sector is a viable alternative, especially because you're not going to have those huge costs when you come out of university. So it'll be exciting to see how this develops. And we discussed a lot of things in this podcast, but I think there's more to it, and we will continue looking at these kind of topics and try and assist with helping, you know, this issue that is happening in the metal sector. So thanks for listening to the pod. Thanks to the sponsors of the podcast, Steel by TW Metals, and obviously ourselves, Compton Group. We hope you've enjoyed this bonus edition, and that's pretty much it for now.
Do you think it's an issue with people's workplaces, how they look?
Yeah, I do. I'll tell you a story. I went over to Holland many years ago, and I spent 5 days there. I went to Holland, the Benelux, and I did this big round robin trip where I saw loads of distribution companies that I wanted to supply to. And it was great. I had a really good time over there. And I remember going and seeing one particular company. And when I came in, it was a beautiful building, really nice foyer where you first went in, and they took me around, they gave me the tour. And I remember after I'd done the tour, as a joke, I said to the guy, I said, where do I sign? Put my hand out and said, I'll take the job. Because it was, I mean, they had a gym, they had a bar in there. It was incredible. And it was so far ahead of its time. This is going back probably 10 years, maybe more. Could be 10, 12 years ago. But when I was travelling around to these places in Holland, they'd invested the money that they were making back into the buildings. I mean, one of them had like a pond with koi carp inside with a bridge. Now, it's not to say you need a bridge or a load of koi carp, but I tell you what, it doesn't look good. It doesn't half look good when you walk into a premises like that. And it looks like the kind of place, it's nicer than your own house. You know, USP have done it, haven't they, recently? They made a load of money, and what did they do? We could either spend tax on it, we could pay corporation tax, or we could invest it in our business. And by doing that, when people turn up at USP, they want to work there because it's like, this place looks incredible. And it's an issue. I just think that a lot of UK businesses, they don't look great, particularly the distribution ones. Why would you want to work there?
Because it's fun.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily see through that at the start when there's other opportunities that are out there.
No, there is that, but there's also a level of people work for people, don't they? We're in recruitment. Most recruitment companies have a spinning wheel. We've got one. Table tennis or pool.
Yeah.
You know, there's that kind of...
We haven't got that.
We don't have any of that. I think...
We've got lights.
What can be an issue, especially when young and new, kind of going around turning up for interviews, and really you don't have a passion for metal, you don't have a passion for manufacturing, you don't have a passion for anything really, because you're almost like, I don't know what I want to do. Basically, I've come out of education, my mum and dad are saying I need to get a job, but where I'm led is really complete luck, because I'm just a graduate. I put my CV out there, I apply just willy-nilly for jobs, which is what most people just do. And then it comes down to luck then, of what recruiter or what people come back to you, which is where you're kind of led. Mm-hmm. And the point I'm trying to make is the first interview with people like that, you need to inspire them. Grant Adams talked about it in the podcast, which inspired him to be in Certec. And the thing what inspired him there was someone with a Rolls Royce. He was a millionaire. He'd never met a millionaire. And there's people in our sector, whether they're working in SME where they've earned really good money, or if they're a general manager and they've made their way up in a company, people have had really good careers in our sector and earned money that if we went into schools, universities and put 70, 80, 150k salaries, there's no way they'd pick manufacturing, engineering, or even metals would never be chosen. And it's about talking openly about going, this is what a company ladder looks like. This is what your career is like. When we're speaking in that podcast with ALFED, people have got people in the business, but they don't know how big the wider community is. No. They almost think that these people are, if they're a heat treatment, if they're scrap, or whether they're, you know, a distributor of extrusions, that they're the only people who do it in the world, because their brain hasn't been, they haven't seen this or been exposed. When you start talking to about metals used for that or for that, you think, my God, it's everywhere. It's like what you say to me about everything's got a fastener.
That's it. Everything's screwed together.
Everything's screwed together. Well, I've never sold fasteners, so it's like, but then you start looking, you think, there's a fastener everywhere. And I think it's about trying to talk to people, especially to trying to trap them initially, which I know is weird because you're almost going, come here, and you might then go on and leave. But it's about going, there is a career here. This isn't just a job. There's loads of opportunities around everywhere. And I think it's kind of need to have people who are going out championing the industry, and everyone talks about it, but no one's doing it, are they? No one's got the time to do it, or it feels that way.
Yeah, I just don't think it gets the PR that unfortunately it deserves. And that's why I think, you know, with what ALFED have done with this podcast with regard to what they're trying to do to champion apprenticeships. But I think, like you said, rather than just look at apprenticeships, it's just about getting people excited about the sector.
Yeah, of course it is. And I think manufacturing has a big issue, because if every time it's on the news, it's never anything positive.
No, it's always when the jobs are low.
You know, you look at stuff going on with Tata, with Paul Talbot, and you've had British Steel, you've had, other parties where you've seen JLR. When all these big blue chip companies who are in our sectors, if they let 50 people go, it makes national news. A company around the corner let 15 people, 20, the same amount of people go. No one would know. How many times do we see it where companies have merged or they've moved and there's been loads of redundancies? Doesn't make a thing. But those companies we mentioned there, they make cutbacks and it goes, it's in the news and it's in the papers.
Yeah.
So there's no positivity within those sectors, which also affects people's decision making when looking to go into their sectors.
Yeah, I agree. But what do you think?